Hello everyone, welcome back to the podcast. I'm Adrian Lloyd, this is just my stupid opinion. So I finally rearranged my back room to give myself an actual good point of view at the camera, because I gotta say, after doing podcasts for an hour or two, sitting in that position, it really starts to strain on your neck and back, so finally got something where I'm a little more center-faced. Anyway, I want to start off today. I actually wasn't planning on making a video or weighing in at all because a lot of other, big time YouTubers are making videos. I didn't see a point for me. But anyway, I'm talking about the red pill black controversy that's been going around YouTube for the last, I guess, about 3 weeks, pushing almost a month now. So I wasn't really going to address it because it was all the big time YouTubers addressing it, but recently, in last week, both Blair White and Candace Owens, Red Pill Black, appeared on the Rubin Report. They had already been there before, but they had both appeared on here this time for a debate over this controversy that happened. Just a quick sum up, Red Pill Black made a website a little while ago that was created to archive people's what people say on the internet, and people were saying that this was a doxing website. She was saying it was a splash page, that you couldn't get any information on that, except when people actually investigated the website Social Autopsy, they found out that there were names on there of real people, and some of them were doxed, and it caused some bad effects in their personal lives. So Red Pill Black's been very defensive of her website. All the YouTubers are, going against her. Everything started off from a video with Tree of Logic. Tree of Logic is an ex-cop. I can't remember which city she mentioned. But this affected her personally because she found out that her information was found on this website because of stuff she had said on Twitter or Facebook in the past, as well as probably a couple of her videos. So Tree of Logic is an ex-cop, and she says even though she's gone through a lot of physical transformation over the years, bad people that she's put away, could recognize her name, and they could potentially come find her because it gives a lot of your personal information. So after Tree of Logic put this video out exposing that the website was still up, that there was information on it that was still archived, that you could go and see for yourself that these people were who they were. And then the rest of the YouTube community, specifically the skeptic community, picked up on this. Andywarski made a video. Some black guy talked about it. Blair White on a live stream was very critical of it. And it made the rounds on YouTube as people showed that the website was still up. You could still access the information. Very controversial. Red Pill Black is saying that it's never been a doxing website. It was actually supposed to be an anti-bullying website. And essentially, as I understand it, when this started blowing up, Candace Owens was the one who contacted Dave Rubin and said she wanted to host a debate about this against Blair White. And then Rubin contacted Blair, to which Blair agreed almost instantaneously, as I understand. Blair White had sent out tweets against Candace Owens, being very critical of her. Some black guy did a live stream with Andywarski and several other YouTubers that joined in, one of them being Blair White, and she was very critical of Candace Owens and this website. The first hour was pretty much dedicated to Red Pill Black. So for some reason, though, Candace Owens chose Blair White out of everybody to debate on the Rubin Report. It's possible that it's because Blair White had been on the Rubin Report before, and Candace Owens made a very recent first appearance. It was only about a month before that. But why she chose Blair White I'm not exactly sure, because as far as I know, Blair White didn't make a video concerning this. She was critical on a live stream, and she sent out tweets to the point where Candace Owens blocked her. She wasn't one of the people that was really responsible for making this go viral on YouTube and the rest of the internet. As far as I know, that was Tree of Logic, Andywarski, some black guy, and a couple others, and I'm sorry if I'm missing anybody else out. Any one of these would be a good person to choose to bring on to debate. Actually, I would have been kind of interested to see Andywarski go up against Red Pill Black. That would have been a funny one. Yeah, Andywarski probably would have wiped the floor with her. But in the end, it was Blair White who got chosen, and she appeared on the Rubin Report, and they debated this out. The reason I decided to make a video about this is because I decided to listen to it as everything was going around. And originally I wasn't planning on watching this debate, but again, it blew up, so what the hell, I'm going to check it out. I ended up actually more listening to the audio version. I downloaded the podcast and listened to it rather than watching them debate it out on video. However, I found myself stopping every few minutes, every 2-3 minutes or so. I had to pause my podcast because Red Pill Black was really driving me up the fucking wall listening to her. But she came out with very classic debate tactics. Not good ones, I'm saying. She spent most of the debate yelling at Blair White, which is not good right off the start if you can't sit down and actually talk it out. She was at times calm, but for the most part I felt that she was screaming at Blair, not screaming, yelling at Blair, while Blair was being much more calm and delivering her thoughts well. Candace Owens was constantly going for the insulting moves. In every possible situation, she deflected the questions away from her. She brought up some controversy. She leveled many claims without evidence, and in fact, Blair even called her out in the middle of it, and Candace Owens doubled down on her beliefs without evidence. And I do have a couple short videos that we're going to check out, just some highlights of the debate. She constantly made ad hominem attacks, and this is something that Blair White addressed, but she also acknowledged that every one of them had made ad hominems on the YouTubers' parts who are attacking Candace Owens, also on Candace Owens' part, and the rest of the community who are defending her. That everybody was using ad hominems, nobody was above it. But Candace Owens kept this up throughout the entire time, being snippy and snarky and ridiculous. And sure, there were times where Blair was too, but not even close to the same degree. I also felt that off the bat, the way the debate opened was that Dave had Candace explain the story for Social Autopsy. And we can take a look at that right now.
I thought the best way to start would be for you simply to just explain once again your involvement in Social Autopsy and why you did it and sort of where it's at the moment, and then we'll go from there.
Right. So I just want to start off because we just had a conversation off camera. She posted something that said my predictions that I talked about. I'm not comfortable using the she pronoun, not because it's not anything to be disrespectful. It's just that a lot of people that follow me don't know that Blair is trans, and a lot of people that follow her maybe don't know me, vice versa. And I think that it betrays the audience when you make it sound like this is a petty catfight and there are two girls sitting across from a table, when in fact it is a grown man sitting across from a grown woman who has had a lot of things to say about me when I've never even met you or said negative comment about you.
So right off the bat, before we even begin the backstory with Candace Owens, she brings up Blair's gender because Blair is a transgender woman. Was once a man, and recently, I think within the last few months, has finished her transition to a woman. And then she says it's because people who follow her, she doesn't want to have criticisms from them. No. She brought it up as essentially an ad hominem. She was trying to attack Blair right off the bat for being a trans woman. I find personally that Candace Owens kind of actually exposed herself in that very statement, because as she's explaining that she's not comfortable using the she pronoun, Candace Owens calls Blair a she.
I just want to start off because we just had a conversation off camera. She posted something that said my predictions that I talked about. I'm not comfortable using the she pronoun, not because it's not anything to be disrespectful. It's just that a lot of people that follow me don't know that Blair is trans, and a lot of people that follow her maybe don't know me, vice versa.
So right off the bat, she's exposing herself that it's not even that. And Candace Owens is somebody who used to be a liberal, as she said many times. Now she's conservative, so she's not comfortable now saying the he pronoun. Personally, for me, if you're a guy dressed as a woman, you want to be referred to she, I'll just call you a she. I mean, I'm not going to give you some bullshit color-coded answer in terms of what I think of a man dressed as a woman, and I think it's kind of weird. But if you want to be called she, fine, I'll call you she. And for the most part, I think Candace Owens hasn't switched on it. She may see trans men and women more as having a mental disorder or something, but I don't believe for a second that Candace Owens actually has a problem with calling her she. Because Candace Owens says, well, I'm not comfortable calling her she, but you know what? I'm going to call her she for the rest of the debate. And she never slipped once. Candace Owens never slipped once and accidentally said Blair was a he, always a she, as if it was natural for her to say it. I'm not saying, I'm not saying that she thinks that transsexual is natural, but my point is she doesn't actually think that way. She's just acting that way. Otherwise, it wouldn't have come out so smoothly for her. But really, this was just another attack on Blair that she tried to do right off the bat before she even answers the question. And then let's get into the rest of it.
So the backstory to the backstory, obviously you know about Social Autopsy, but there's a very relevant part of this, which is essentially that when I was in high school, I had an experience that happened to me, and it's something that I like to talk about factually, and I hate talking about it because it involves other people, and I'm out here talking about my opinions, my beliefs. When you're involving other people, I think it's a little unfair. When I was a junior in high school, I received one night I was sitting on a couch with my boyfriend, and I received anonymous phone calls. And at the end of watching Talladega Nights with my boyfriend, I picked up the phone, I listened to the voicemails, and they were people, 4 boys that were screaming back and forth, calling me a dirty nigger, saying we're going to tar and feather your family, saying we're going to do to you like we did to Martin Luther King, put a bullet in the back of your head, made references to Rosa Parks. It was really probably the nastiest thing that I've ever heard in my entire life. After hearing that, and by the way, this is not a victim story, it's just something that factually happened that you guys can all research. It turns out by some random stroke of super misfortune that one of the kids that was in the car when they left these voicemails happened to be the current governor of Connecticut's son. And where this would have normally been maybe a tap on the finger sort of a thing, this turned into an FBI investigation. And the then mayor was making comments that were very political. It became political.
Now, in terms of that story, she said you could research it and it's factually true. As far as I can tell, it is factually true. As I decided to look into it, I did find some articles that were linking the mayor's son in Stamford to death threats probe. In fact, they even mentioned Candace Owens' name in person. And the stories pretty much corroborate. The only thing I couldn't find, in terms of the references to Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King, as far as I know, I could only find either quotes from Candace Owens or from articles she's written or was interviewed in, or she specifically was the one saying that. But the rest of the story is true, so whether or not those were just exaggerations added on her part, it's not really significant, I find, because in the end she did receive these really racist death threats. In fact, they even said that they were going to, one thing that was said is that they were going to tar and feather her. Yeah, it doesn't sound pleasant. As we can see here, it even says Candace Owens, 17, says she fears for her life after going through the threatening voicemails. We can even look at this article here from News Times. It says racist threats case filed by Stanford high school student settled for $37,500. It was written January 23rd, 2008, because this all went down in 2007. So it says, last February, at least 1 in 5 teenagers sitting in a car left messages threatening to kill Owens, who is black, and repeatedly used a racial epithet in one of 3 messages. One of them referred to her as dirty and threatened to burn her house down and tar and feather her. The group included Malloy's youngest son, Sam, then 14. The mayor released a statement in March saying his son cooperated with police and did not know the alleged ringleader, Evan Kopech, or Owens before the night of the call. He was declined comment since then. Kopech, now 18, was a former friend and classmate of Owens. 2 days before the phone incident, they had a shouting match during class. School officials suspended Kopech for that, but would not discipline him and the other boys for an incident committed off school grounds unless the police made an arrest, which drew criticism from the State National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. Owens left the school for 6 weeks, saying it was traumatic to attend with the alleged callers. She returned after Kopech was arrested in late March. Another teen was arrested later in the spring. School officials would not say whether they disciplined Kopech after the arrest. So it was this guy, even Kopech, who really had the history with Candace Owens. Clearly they had gotten into something just a couple days before. And if I remember my high school bullshit pretty well, this seems exactly the type of thing that teenagers would pull. They would make again, this is a very extreme thing that a teenager would pull. They must have been very pissed off and willing to go to great lengths. But all in all, calling them, fucking with them, they probably had no real intent of doing anything. I remember being with my friends making prank phone calls, and sometimes they descended into stuff that got dark, and it wasn't intentional. In this case, I think it was, but I remember a couple of times when people would be getting into fake arguments, like my friends getting into fake arguments on fake phone calls, a couple times when, right around the time when I would force them to hang up, they would start being like, fuck you, I'll kill you. And I'm like, okay, once you start making death threats, then people are going to take that seriously. I think what happened in here is these people were pissed off and willing to make these threats to scare her, but it was also for them funny. So they didn't think much of it. Oh, we'll give her a good scare, that's all. But instead, it descended into something quite dark and became very racist, very aggressive, very threatening, to the point where the police got involved. And I've seen this happen too. So these were teenagers who let shit get way too fucking out of hand, thought what they were doing was going to be fucking around and giving her a good scare, but instead, they scared the fucking living shit out of Candace Owens. So, this story, as far as I can tell, would be true. However, what I also thought was interesting from this News Times article is at the end of the article, it says Candace Owens was arrested in an unrelated harassment case in October. In November, Kopech pleaded to being a youthful offender and had his case sealed. He will have no criminal record. He faces charges of first-degree harassment and second-degree intimidation by bigotry or bias. So, Candace herself got arrested for harassment. And the funny thing is, if we go back to her original, when she was originally on the Rubin Report, what she said about Social Autopsy, here's a clip here.
Left that firm and wanted to do my own anti-bullying startup thing that went really sideways when the left tried to do hit pieces on me during the election, and that was my red pill moment.
Really? So
Yeah.
wait, how did doing an anti-bullying thing get you caught up in the left?
So I don't know if many of the people that watch this show are familiar with the Gamergate scandal. Long story short, that whole scandal is built on a girl named Zoe Quinn who says that she was attacked by anonymous white men on the internet. And people were saying that that wasn't true, and she said that it was. So I was doing an anti-bullying startup that I was really passionate about, and I got a phone call from her, and I put up basically a 3-minute video on Kickstarter teasing what we were going to do. And I said this one sentence, which was a figure of speech that I think set the alarms off. I said, what we're doing is figuratively lifting the masks up off of trolls. Yeah. So she calls me up, and I have no idea who she is. I don't know what Gamergate is. I don't know what doxing means. And she says, you have to pull your project because people actually don't want to find out who harassed them. She said, I'm a victim, but I never want to know who harassed me on the internet. Like, I totally appreciate the phone call, but I'm not going to pull my Kickstarter. And she started crying. And she said, if you don't, it's going to ruin everything. And she told me that she spends time on 4chan because of what she does, and she saw that people were already talking about my project, and if I didn't pull it, these anonymous white men and Trump supporters, you have to remember this was during the election cycle, were going to come after me and dox my family, which essentially means put up their personal information so people can try to kill them. That's what she says.
So she said this is what they are going to do. So she was oddly threatening you with being doxed, but it wasn't she that was going to dox you.
She thought I was a total moron, I think, and I'm like, okay, I'm not pulling my project. She hangs up the phone crying. Within 2 hours, we were absolutely inundated. About 4,000 emails via Kickstarter, like, nigger, 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 die, 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 pull your project. And they have these super obvious screen names like, Trump or die. Yeah. No woman. And magically, everything that she tried to warn me about came true within a couple of hours of me refusing to pull my project. So the Washington Post called me, and I had the good sense to actually record it. I just turned on my camera and said, something fishy's here. And this girl was obvious. This girl, Caitlin Dewey, was asking me questions, and she was trying to figure out who was funding us. And her job, or her role, was to cut off the funding, cut off the legs of Social Autopsy so it could never see the light of day. Washington Post, I had caught her in a lie via email versus what she said on the phone, and they pulled the article last second and told me I wasn't important enough to run it anyways when I threatened to sue them.
Now, again, in the first time that she's on Rubin Report, she's talking about how this is supposed to be an anti-bullying website that's supposed to help prevent teens. Because what it'll do is it'll archive what they say, and then that way it'll give them some sort of, I don't know exactly how it was supposed to work, but she said it was give them some sort of punishment or restriction. I'm not sure how, but people could go online and look up what these people can say, and it would have attachment to not just their anonymous account, but it could attach it to their Facebook account, which can give people your personal information, such as where you work, where you live, down to your address and your phone number. So some people that are fucking around online now suddenly can be completely exposed, and a lot of these would be teens. Now, how much is going to fuck up people's lives? Let's just think, what if Social Autopsy were around when this happened to Candace? Well, without a doubt, these kids would be in the system, this archive that was created. So they'd be in there. But then, what's this about Candace getting arrested for harassment too? If you're getting arrested for harassment, you must be doing something pretty damn bad. And it wasn't physically, it didn't say it was assault or anything like that, so it may not have just been a fight, but she had to be harassing somebody pretty damn bad. What if we could access that today? Because they just make reference to it and they gloss over the fact that she was arrested for harassment without giving any details. Well, what happened? Because this might be significant. What if something she did was similar to what these boys did to her, but she did it to somebody else? Suddenly, she's just as guilty, but then she's making this story about how she's doing this because of her experience. And this is supposed to help children. Well, this is going to ruin children's future because we all say stupid things online. We've all done something stupid we regret, and I should take this out because I'm not listening to the video anymore. We all do stupid things we regret. I can remember something very specific that happened to me when I was in high school that I did online that could have gotten me in trouble, even though there was nothing serious. It was all jokes. What ended up happening is when I was in grade 10, I hated my math teacher, and a lot of the students did. So somebody, it may have even been me, I can't really remember exactly if it was me, made a post about the bullshit math class we had, and people started commenting on it. I was one of them. And then me and another girl from our class started joking around about, we're going to bring smoke grenades, and then, we'll get the helicopter ready on the roof. Well, my dad had me on Facebook, and he took that quite seriously because he's saying, people don't know you're joking. People monitor that. It can be taken the wrong way. You can get in a lot of trouble. What happens if your school finds that, Things I really hadn't considered, which is true. Obviously we're joking because we're going to have smoke grenades to get out of our test and a helicopter on the roof. How are we supposed to do this when we're fucking 16, 15-year-olds? We're obviously joking. But the point he was trying to make is that you need to be careful what you say online because things can be taken in the wrong terms. You can't really... There's no sarcastic text. So it's very hard to express satire unless you're very obvious that you're being satirical. So maybe if Social Autopsy was around, this would have been archived for me. And then that means an employer, when I was, going up for my next job, could look this up and see what I've said way in the past. And that can actually affect your future. She's saying she's doing it to help teens. This is actually going to hinder teens. And not to mention everybody else. In fact, South Park, either last season or 2 seasons ago, focused on this exact type scenario as the main, one of the side stories of their seasons. Because at this point, they had all their stories connected throughout the season. One episode led into the other. And what ended up happening was that, not Stan, but Kyle. It was Kyle's dad. I cannot remember Kyle's dad's name right now. Something Broflovsky. But anyway, Kyle's dad turned out to be a troll online. He loved going online late at night and trolling people. And one time he trolled a little girl, or maybe it was an adult, I can't remember, but he trolled somebody into suicide. And this caused a national outrage, and then people wanted the veil lifted off of the trolls. So this caused a huge crisis among the trolls, because now that everyone's going to know who they are and want to get revenge. So they were saying their actual safety was on the line, which is true. Because these people, again, they might be shit talkers and shit posters, but that doesn't mean they're going to deserve the retribution that they're going to get. Because this will cost people jobs, this will cost people friends, family. They could get their ass kicked, possibly, on the streets. These are very real possibilities that could come. But anyway, what ended up happening in the South Park season is that as it went on and this actually got put into play and people could lift the veil off the anonymity, it wasn't the trolls that got lifted. Of course it was at first. They were the one that originally got targeted. But everybody targeted themselves. Not themselves specifically, but their family. What's my husband saying online? What are my kids saying online? What are my parents, my brother, my grandfather saying online? And it ripped the whole town and family apart because everybody was figuring out the terrible shit that people are saying online. Because everybody does it. And in the end, what ends up happening is the trolls end up destroying the system that has all this archived, and they essentially reset the internet back to zero, so all the history of the internet and all the data is destroyed. But the point I'm trying to make is, and South Park was very true, is this is not going to go after the trolls. This is going to go after the innocent civilians. This is a very, and I'm not the first person to say it, Orwellian idea. Lifting the veil of anonymity on anybody is not a good idea. People are anonymous for a reason. And while you can do shit while you're anonymous, it's not good. Part of the reason, actually, that I stopped using my avatar early on in my YouTube and started using my camera is because I decided that I should stand by my word. So I should at least expose my face and be willing to speak and say what I have to say. If I'm going to come out in public and say it, then I might as well stand by my word. I give my face, I've given most of my name, I just have made it so that a simple Google search will not attach my name to my podcast. But then does that mean that because even I've given that much, that my whole Facebook that I'm attached to should be exposed? That my parents should possibly get some threats or some shit mail because of stuff that I've said? Or my brother? His well, not fiance actually, but his girlfriend, his longtime girlfriend, my wife? Is she supposed to get my hate mail because of something I've said? Is that fair? Because this is going to be the effect of this. But let's move on a little more. I've said enough on the opening, but let's move on a little more into what actually gets said between Blair and Candace. And you can see more of how Candace reacted throughout the whole of the exchange and see more what I mean.
You have the backstory, which I will absolutely let you finish, but the way you're dealing with people calling out the story and calling out things that they think maybe are fraudulent, maybe they're not fraudulent, maybe you can clear that up, is you haven't actually cleared it up. You've blocked everyone. People can attest to that, everyone. Andywarski, Bunty King, Dave Cullen, who actually provided screenshots of things he said to you. So unlike me, I can see you blocking me for calling you trash. And honestly, I'll say I'm sorry for calling you trash. That's totally fine. But as far as him, he sent like 4 or 5 very respectful tweets, just asking you for questions, asking for your side of the story. So if he made a video, he could
I would just like to.
So Blair White opens up by admitting she made an ad hominem attack and apologizing for it. Candace Owens, even though she opened first, makes an ad hominem attack against Blair White. Because what they were talking about had nothing to do with Blair's gender. That's a completely different conversation, a completely different debate. And if you want to get into that after you've solved Social Autopsy, fine. But it was ridiculous to bring it up off the bat. But as we're going to see, Blair came with, some respectability. She came with not being a complete bitch. She actually wanted to debate it out. But Candace Owens was on the defensive and just was going to yell and make a bunch of snarky remarks the entire time.
Well, hold on.
Chronologically speaking, they made the videos and then asked questions. I don't do that. I don't negotiate with terrorists. You don't get to make a video about me lying, okay,
YouTube
and then saying, now you better come to me and answer me. Who does that?
All right, hold on.
So again, there we can see she equates them to terrorists, and as we'll see in the video for a minute, she says, well, it's a figure of speech. No. When she used that, she is trying to make the correlation with them with terrorists. Even though she doesn't believe they're terrorists, she's just trying to put them in a certain category to get people on her side. If she can relate them back to it's like terrorism, well, then that looks pretty good on Candace Owens. Wow, you're a victim of some form of terrorism. Again, obviously she doesn't actually think it's terrorism, but the whole point is to slander the other side. So that's right off the start. Also, she says that, you didn't come to me ask for answers. Is every single person who makes a goddamn YouTube video supposed to go to the person first and ask them if they can make the video? Should I have contacted Candace Owens before doing this, and Blair White and Dave Rubin, and asked them if I can be critical of all this? No, I'm not going to fucking do that. And none of the rest of them are going to do that. They're going to talk about whatever conversations they want, or more, sorry, they are going to talk about whatever topics they want. And they don't need fucking permission because you've made a website to come to you and ask to be critical about it. No, if they're critical about it, they'll come out, right out and say it. And then that's the way things go these days on the internet. You make your videos and then you solve it in the mess afterwards. I wish it was better, but that's the way it is. And besides, a lot of times, you need the attention in order to get the conversation going. Because a lot of times, if just Andywarski or Blair White had just contacted us, I wanted to talk to you about Social Autopsy and I have a lot of criticisms for it. Do you think we'd be sitting here watching the Rubin Report as they debate it out? This would never have happened. Nobody would hear about this. But people who are critical of the idea and realize that it was a lot more dangerous than she was making it out to be, and that it was still active by the time that she was talking about it on the Rubin Report, despite the fact she said it's all in the past, it was a splash page, it was nothing.
The opposite way of handling
on.
anything. You didn't have this. You didn't have, and there are 10-year-olds that are killing themselves over Snapchat, and it's all like just because of the internet. My dad, when I was growing up, my dad had a beeper. And then all of a sudden we have Facebook and Instagram, all of these things. And I thought to myself, what a way if I can come back and create something that helps kids navigate technology, right, without ruining their lives. Like, do these kids need to be arrested for saying mean things? No, I disagree with that. Like,
Okay.
No, they shouldn't be arrested for this. Instead, we're going to ruin their lives. Because from now on, you're just going to be able to access whatever they say. So if they do say something stupid, like a racist remark when they're trying to be funny online or something like that, it ruins their lives. And actually, I think a good example of this was a few years ago in Ottawa, we had a controversy. We had two controversies in the same year concerning Ottawa U. The first one, in my opinion, was kind of bullshit. I could see where it could definitely cause a bit of a stir, but I thought what everything ended up happening was bullshit. Second one was legit. The second one was I think it was two members of the Ottawa U hockey team had raped a girl while they were in like Petawawa or something. So like the rest of the hockey season got canceled and everybody was in an uproar. That made sense. The second one was because a email got released. Sorry, not an email, a Facebook conversation concerning the, at the time, Ottawa U's student council president. And it was four guys that didn't like her, were saying some nasty things about her, but then it descended into like how they'd like to fuck her and this, that, and the other. And honestly, sounded like a lot of locker talk. Sounded like a lot of ways that a lot of these guys watching this video would talk to their friends in a locker room or when you're alone, you know, I'd love to fuck her, blah, 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 blah. Private conversation. That's why to me, it wasn't that big of a deal. It's like, yeah, it's nasty, but it's not like they're going out there publicly saying, I want to fuck her this way, I want to put it in her ass. They're just having a small conversation as they were talking about how much they dislike her, and then ha 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 ha. So maybe I'm just insensitive, or maybe I'm just an asshole, but I didn't think it was a big deal because no actual attack, no actual sexual assault had happened. And this was supposed to be a private messaging, but someone hacked their Facebook and got the messages out. And then this became a whole thing where she became the poster child of, oh, I'm a terrible, you know, I've had this great, terrible thing happen to me. Somebody said something mean about me to their friends. And somebody, you know, objectified me a bit to their friends. Not the worst thing that's happened. I'm sorry, but I have friends that have legitimately been raped. So I really don't take a lot of concern that a few guys were being a little nasty in their Facebook messages amongst each other. But they ended up getting expelled. She became the poster child. Everything was good. Except what didn't come out publicly, which information I got from a friend of my wife. She wasn't my wife at the time, but a friend of my wife who went to Ottawa U, is that one or two of these guys from this group that were saying that had a very bad relationship with this student council president. She and them did not get along. And apparently, it was one of her friends who hacked their Facebook, got a hold of these messages, and released it out because everybody was saying it was an anonymous source that released this information to the public. But from my knowledge, it was a friend of hers that did this. But these kids, these 4 guys, lives were ruined. They got expelled from their university. They spent all that money and they couldn't do it. And then now their names were put out publicly. So any Google search is going to send them back to that article. And then how well do you think their lives are going right now? Probably not very good. This is exactly what Social Autopsy would have done, but on a global scale. Anybody could be added to this archive. What about fake accounts, which happen all the time? You could fake an account, put something terrible on there, and then archive it on Social Autopsy as being, oh, look at this hateful thing this bigot said. When in reality, it was the person who uploaded it, because anybody can upload it to there. And then they can fake an account for somebody they don't like and very easily post that and make it seem like it's them. It's easy to do.
So you created Social Autopsy with the idea that it was sort of going to almost self-police some of the kids' ability to ruin themselves.
Right, exactly. So what we thought was, what if there was a way when kids do these like stupid things, and we initially always thought about kids. We had to change it because people said first try it on adults, try to send a little looser because people are sensitive when it comes to children.
Jesus, I wonder why people might be sensitive to their children's information being archived on a website.
And we said, what if there was a way that we could archive what they say with like a no-no type of a punishment, like maybe it's held for 3 months, and everybody, like all of these schools, we were meeting with principals of schools, of high schools, before we even decided what we wanted to do.
So she says that she was already meeting with schools without any idea of what she was going to do. I'm sure she had an idea that was going to be anti-bullying in some way that was going to archive. She may not have known that she actually wanted to put a website together in order to do this, but she knew she wanted some way to lift the veils off of trolls, because she was probably being treated meanly. And I don't just mean with her experience where she actually went through legitimate shit with this, like with the guys who made the phone call to her. I mean, she's probably getting treated a little mean online. Few little trolls calling her out for her Orwellian idea, her terrible idea. Oh, God.
Realized very quickly, which is why Mike Cernovich came to my defense. I met him when this was going on. What was that?
I laughed.
Okay.
All right.
That's just, honestly, like, it should be beneath you, but I guess it's not.
And here's another example of how Candace Owens just is snarky and snippy and using terrible debate tactics. Because Blair White, okay, sure, she laughed when she mentioned Mike Cernovich. A lot of people think Mike Cernovich is a joke of a journalist. Me personally, Mike Cernovich is just a right-wing figure. I don't see him as a journalist or this, that, or the other. He's just a right-wing figure. Somebody that I've heard around. I've heard him speak a few times. But so Blair gives a little bit of a, barely a laugh. And Candace Owens puts all this attention on, oh, I thought it was beneath you, but I guess it's not. Like, this is bullshit. This is fucking grade 6 in the goddamn schoolyard type of fighting. And Candace Owens is 28 years old. Can you imagine what she was like when she was a teenager? Holy shit. No wonder she got fucking arrested for harassment if this is the way she's treating people. She can't even sit across from somebody, have a debate about them with an idea she had with a website that was actually active until only a couple weeks ago when the controversy hit and it got taken down. She can't even have a debate about that without getting snarky and resorting to literally little girl tactics.
That's why I met Mike Cernovich right when this was going down, when I got attacked, and I realized that the reason why I didn't want to launch this website was because I literally realized that it was going to be a tool for SJWs to attack conservatives, and we had nothing to do with politics. So when this girl, who she's for some reason defending, posted this this original smear, she said that I was launching this website and was going to turn it against conservatives, use their money, okay?
Yeah.
And like the whole reason I stopped the project was I realized that it was going to be politicized and it was going to become a weapon that I never intended.
Okay.
It was going to be a tool for SJWs to attack conservatives. I mean, I don't know anything really besides for what I've heard from Candace about what she was like as a liberal, and I'm going to put liberal in quotation marks. She really, to me, sounded like she was a lefty. From the few things that I've heard that she was like when she was a liberal, it was really she was a lefty and she was an SJW whiny little bitch, really. Meh, people are mean to me. That's really what she seems like to me. So why would she really care that they were going after conservatives more, because the left, for the most part, doesn't really have that care for the conservative or the right. Not that the right really has it for the left either, but to me, it sounds like she was already making her transition, and then it was like, oh, this would attack the people that now I'm associating with. Oh, now I can't do it. At least that's what it seems to me. It seems like she's just deflecting because now she was changing sides.
You stated on your Patreon, Tree of Logic was paid to lie. Do you have evidence of that?
Right, no. So my
You don't have evidence?
No, I don't have evidence if I 100% believe. And by the way,
Whoa, whoa, whoa. You accuse somebody on drugs, have zero evidence for it, and then you're going to say, I absolutely believe it? You're doubling down on evidence you don't have. This, again, is showing the type of person that Candace Owens is. She's willing to smear someone with zero evidence. That's literally a social justice warrior move. In my opinion, as much as she's tried to move away, she's exposing how all the things, all the social justice warrior tactics and belief system that she had are still present. She's just playing for the other side now. She's playing for the right. You can take the SJW from the left-wing camp, but you can't really get rid of the social justice warrior personality. For a lot of people, they're born this way, or they were raised this way. You're trying to undo a lifetime of belief and emotional response and a way of thinking. So this is the one thing I do kind of find where a lot of right-wingers and conservatives are happy to see the pendulum swinging back to the right. There are more people who are identifying on the right wing these days than there used to be. They're taking a lot of the left wing's bad people, all these SJWs, these emotional shrills. They're taking, not all of them, but they're getting a good handful of them who are now starting to smear the right wing. I don't know if Laura Loomer for Rebel Media has always been on the right, or whether she transitioned from a left wing to a right wing at some point, but she to me is a good example of a right wing SJW. Here's another example of a right wing SJW. They're just popping up all over the place. The right is essentially cleaning house for the left, from the way it seems.
you kept making it seem like I was saying you were paid to lie, or any of the people that you hang out with. Absolutely not. I was
Candace,
always.
you called it a funded
Ask me a question.
misinformation
Doesn't want to
campaign.
answer. Next question.
People are gonna
You can answer yourself.
No, I want you to finish answering that. Seriously.
You didn't, because you cut me off.
Well, I'm letting you know now.
So now we get down to one of the meatiest part of the accusations that Candace Owens has thrown back at the YouTubers. Richard Spencer retweeted Tree of Logic's video within 24 hours of it being out. I think she posted it up on Twitter, and then he ended up retweeting it. So she believes that Richard Spencer, which we'll see in a minute, is a Democratic deep state operative, and that this was a deep state conspiracy against her. Yeah. Wow, one hell of a deflection. Instead of just owning up that this website was archiving people, and that even if your intention wasn't to dox people, that's what it was being used for. Instead of owning up to that, you're just going to double down and pull some bullshit, no evidence, it's a deep state conspiracy. And clearly she's willing to. She's already proven that she's willing to double down on she's already proven she's willing to double down on accusations with zero evidence. So it really doesn't surprise me to see this. Not to mention that because she gets cut off by Blair, and they've been cutting each other off up to this point continuously, and they continue to cut each other off for the rest of the debate. And that happens a lot. Happens a lot of debate. This one's a little bit of a catfight, even though Candace Owens didn't want it to be a catfight. This is definitely a catfight. So then she goes, oh, I'm not going to answer probably one of the most important parts of your question because you cut me off. No, I need you to either apologize or acknowledge to let me go before I will answer your question. Cry me a fucking river.
I was saying too was that the highly suspect thing to me was Richard Spencer. Richard Spencer, for a long time, this was not my theory or my conspiracy, has been considered to be a Democratic operative. People have thought he's working for them because he started on Wall Street, like boycotting on Wall Street as like a very liberal person. All of a sudden, he's a leader of the white nationalist party. And every time he appears, he seems to be attacking Donald Trump, trying to pretend that this is the brand of Donald Trump. So this person who...
We were all liberals here. Why couldn't he be a liberal in the past? Why is that only afforded to us here?
It doesn't matter. I'm explaining to you that this isn't something that I started with Richard Spencer. This isn't my conspiracy theories. So for you trying a tinfoil and try to essentially make it gaslight me, make it seem like I was a conspiracy theorist.
Gaslighting. You made statements you
to
can't
answer your
provide
question.
For.
So she's just going off on a conspiracy that she's heard. She says it's not my conspiracy, so she hasn't made it up, but she doesn't say that she believes it either. Again, I think this is just another deflection. Oh, Richard Spencer retweeted the video, so that's why. Maybe it had nothing to do with the fact that you're black and he's a white nationalist. Maybe it has more to do with what you were trying to do, which every one of us, aside for yourself, Candace, believes it's doxing. When you take people's personal information and attach it to their anonymous accounts to lift the veil of anonymity, then yeah, that is literally a dox.
Provide evidence that Tree was paid.
You couldn't provide evidence that I was
paid.
doxing people, but you said it. My point is that
Blair can't provide evidence that she was doxing him. Once again, bullshit, because all Blair has to prove is that the website is being used for that purpose, which she did. She did. I don't know if I put it in this clip, but inside of the debate, Blair brought up evidence that it was being used for doxing. Other websites were using Social Autopsy, going to get the information, and then they were doxing the people. People got doxed. That was actually proven that people had their anonymity exposed. So now, that's all you have to do. If you aren't archiving, if Google was to put up this information so that people could then attach anonymous accounts to their Google accounts, then they would be doxing people, even if that wasn't their intention. Even if they weren't putting it on to expose people, you're doxing people. Because this isn't like a government website. This isn't because you had a criminal record that you could check into. These are people that just are expressing their point of view, yet want to remain anonymous for one reason or another. Some of them want to remain anonymous because of their jobs. Because any small thing in their jobs that they're caught doing can get them fired, especially in this day and age. So Blair provided all the evidence that she needed to prove that people were getting doxxed by Candace's website.
for Richard Spencer, for this video to be online, this girl makes a crazy, insane video saying that I'm going to launch this website in 3 weeks, that I'm using conservative dollars. Absolutely nuts. It's nuts. You keep saying I think she's crazy. I think she's out of her goddamn mind. I'm being 100% honest with you. Okay? He retweets it in a matter of 24 hours. That just seems like
okay, so I think
really...
all right, so before we get...
So again, her whole conspiracy is based on Richard Spencer retweeting it. That's no evidence. It just shows that Richard Spencer saw it and retweeted it. There's plenty of other times he hasn't retweeted other things, and there's plenty of times he has retweeted other things. Not everything is a deep state conspiracy. She spends fucking what? A couple shows on Alex Jones, and now she's fucking a whole full-blown conspiracy theorist? Jesus Christ. Now we get down to Dave Rubin. I like Dave Rubin. I like him a lot. I like his show. I like listening to the interesting conversations that he has on it. But my God, Dave Rubin will never be a moderator for any debate that I ever got into. If somehow that came up, no way. I thought he did a very bad job. He couldn't gain control of the situation for a long time, which I understand was difficult considering what he was dealing with, but he needed to be more assertive in order to break things up. If it was me, I would be more assertive, and if that meant raising your voice in order to draw attention to you in order to get them to stop, then do it. But really my main problem with this was not that he let things get out of control. That happens, and again, if that was only the case, sure, okay, I would have no problem with him moderating. My problem is that Dave Rubin came in with a clear bias. He defended a few times Red Pill Black, Candace Owens, and what she was doing. And he also was critical a few times of the YouTubers and what they were doing. A moderator is just there to ask the questions and keep things going in line and make sure things don't get out of hand. Things got out of hand, but they're not there to pick a side, which to me, Dave Rubin clearly did. And here is where we're going to see some of it. There's more to it than just this, but here are some of the biggest moments I figure, as we're about to see.
Of a retweet.
But hold on, I think there is something interesting to that, because we all discussed this before. I discussed with both of you separately beforehand, that we know sort of the rhythms of the internet and how suddenly we've all been through this, right? There's been times where people were endlessly and relentlessly and unfairly attacking you. I've been through it. You're through it now, and it goes in phases. They see someone kind of moving on up, and then everyone jumps on it.
Right.
So first of all, he's equating the unfair attacks that he's received and Blair's received to Candace. Candace Owens, the criticism she's receiving is coming from a real place. It's not that just people are haters and that they want to tear her down. They're critical because people's lives have been maybe not ruined, but greatly affected by this website. But now he's just saying, oh, well, people are trying to attack you because you're an up-and-comer, and we know that it comes in waves and they want to attack you. No, no, no. People are attacking her for real reasons. She's been an up-and-comer for some time. Dave Rubin got her on her show because she had reached a point where he took notice. But she was up-and-coming. She spoke to other people before Dave Rubin. She had been on InfoWars. She had been speaking to Stefan Molyneux. But now it's unfair attacks? No. No, these unfair attacks would have happened a long time ago, and she would have been dealing with this. But suddenly when it happens when we're concerning a doxing website, it's so unfair. And I think, it might just be right after this clip here, Blair White takes notice of that, about how he's being biased. Either it's this time or the next time. She doesn't point it out directly, but she does kind of make reference. You can see. I'll show you.
It does seem a little odd to me, but again, I don't.
It was odd.
I always quote Carl Sagan: "Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence." So I can't.
But it's not.
But something seems odd to me. That why would Richard Spencer get involved in this?
Odd. If you can't acknowledge
but I have nothing.
All he did was retweet something. He retweeted
it's
something.
It's just weird.
There we go. So he's starting to say, well, it's odd that Richard Spencer would retweet something. He retweeted something. I stand with Blair. What do you mean it's odd he would retweet something? People see shit on their accounts all the time and retweet it. And I've retweeted things. Again, I don't have a fucking large following on Twitter. I don't know. I got like 20 people maybe, and that's being generous to myself. But yeah, I've retweeted things that have one retweet before. They just happen to pop up in my feed for whatever reason. And it won't even be from a well-known account, or as far as I know, it's not a well-known account. And there's plenty of times they only have 15 retweets or something like that. It happens. Why is this so suspicious? Just because he retweeted it, and also because there's some theory that he's a deep state Democratic operative. Wow, that sounds like a pretty damn cool job to me. But Dave is practically defending her by telling her that this is an unfair attack upon her, and it's odd that that Richard Spencer retweeted. And he also says, well, you know what Carl Sagan said: extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Well, if you believe that, Dave, and you're willing to say when something sounds weird, then why haven't you said anything about these claims that she's made, such as Tree of Logic is on drugs, and even though we haven't seen it yet, Candace has already made reference to it about how she said these YouTubers are bottom feeders. So he said extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Well, all she has is Richard Spencer's retweeting it, and that there's some theory that he's a deep state Democratic operative, and nothing on that. But when actual evidence is being presented to him, he said, oh, it's weird, man, it's weird, we can never know, as we'll see, because again, he says that in a minute, pretty much putting the words into Candace's mouth in order to end that conversation.
It's a retweet.
Okay, do you not think it's weird that somebody who has a really small following was able to get all the way to Richard Spencer in 24 hours? You don't think that's weird? You just
either way, we're not going to know what the answer. The truth is, but guys, the truth is, we're not going to know the answer.
We're not going to know the answer to that.
There's nothing that you can tell me that's going to. Yeah. So
funny how Candace jumps all over that when it's pretty much putting a stopper in here, because they're calling her out and saying, "Why is this so weird? This theory you have, it doesn't make sense." But then Dave puts the stoppage right into the drain on the whole situation, saying, oh, you know what, we'll never know, we'll never know. Well, we may not know why he retweeted, although my guess is because he saw it and was interested in it and wanted to tweet it out, you know, the same way I or anybody else does when they're on Twitter. But instead of getting deeper into it, it's like, wait, how is this a conspiracy against you? What evidence do you have for this? All she has is that he retweeted it in less than 24 hours. Oh, really? That's her whole defense. easily broken down, but by Dave saying, we'll never know, he put a stop to all criticism. That's showing to me, like, over these last couple seconds, a clear bias from his part about which side he's taking on this.
I'm pretty sure she's an alt-right sympathizer.
I have a problem with saying we don't know the answer to that, because at the end of the day, she made a direct claim and she can't prove it. So saying we don't know the answer to it, it's kind of like giving credibility to the fact that it might be a thing.
Exactly. Giving her that is like giving her credibility for something. And if you caught it right before, I don't think Blair did at the time, but Candace will bring it up again. Calls her an alt-right sympathizer. Watch.
You're defending Richard Spencer and a woman that literally sounded like she was on crack cocaine. No, but you are a little bit of an alt-right sympathizer, right? Because you're sitting here.
I'm an alt-right sympathizer. Did you just say that?
Yeah. Because she didn't believe that it was weird that Richard Spencer retweeted, she's an alt-right sympathizer. Is this not the same thing that SJWs on the left did? Did they not used to say that? Oh, you're part of the right? You white nationalist, you alt-righter, you white supremacist. That's what's getting thrown around these days. Being called far right is the SJW, the sensitive lefties, go-to insult. You're a Nazi. You're far right. You're a white supremacist. And now she's doing that. And boy, that sounds pretty nasty coming from a black woman, too, because she's saying, oh, you're obviously a white supremacist because you're defending Richard Spencer against me, a black woman. And this is something Tree of Logic had talked about when she was making her videos, why she didn't believe that Red Pill Black was a real conservative. And she just said, like, she likes to play the race card. Here's her without actually saying, I'm a black woman. She's playing the race card by calling Blair alt-right, which might as well put her in the same camp as racists and white supremacists. This is just a huge slanderous fucking hour and 15 or whatever debate from Red Pill Black. She was awful in this. And again, these are awful debate tactics because you're not answering the question. You're just making snide remarks, and that's what you're basing everything on. Shock value, essentially.
You refusing to answer Dave Collins' questions and then saying that she's a crackhead, so she's not worth responding to.
Right, that's how I felt.
That's you giving up the debate.
No, I genuinely think she sounded like she was on drugs.
You can genuinely believe that, but that's still an ad hominem.
Sure.
So that's what I'm saying, that we're none of us are above that.
Okay.
You called all the YouTubers bottom feeders. None of us are above that. We've all.
I genuinely think that's why I didn't answer. It's like I have better things to do than deal with bottom feeders. I
think we can all agree that we wish YouTubers would make better quality videos.
Yeah, it just felt about.
So I'm going to get to you again in a moment, Dave, but right now I'll deal with Red Pill Black. So now, Red Pill Black triples down on everything she says. No evidence for Tree of Logic being on drugs, but apparently she's on drugs now, and she genuinely believes that. She believes it's a deep state conspiracy perpetuated by Richard Spencer, and she believes, and genuinely believes, that all the YouTubers who are making videos are bottom feeders. And the part that I edited out because it was a little bit long, but what she added in right before the end time, the second time, she says, you know, I got better things to do than deal with bottom feeders. She ended up saying that it's because they don't make YouTube videos that matter, because they attack her rather than focusing on, like, political stuff. Well, I decided to focus on political stuff when I started up my podcast. I know it's not always political stuff, sometimes branches out. Again, this is YouTube, it's not really political right now. But my main thing I try and focus on is politics. I chose that because I was interested in politics. Not a lot of people that I knew wanted to talk politics, and especially not to the degree I wanted. I wanted to get into it. Some people would always be like, yeah, you know, it's shitty fucking government, but nobody wanted to get into it. And then when I did meet a friend who had actually gone to university and taken a political science class, so somebody who actually knew what they were talking about, even better than I did, because I haven't taken a political science class. Everything I've done has been my own studying. Right now I have an audiobook that I'm listening to dedicated for how emotions play an impact in politics. It's kind of interesting, actually. Anyway, he, within a couple months of us meeting, really lost interest in the subject. More, I think he just got tired of everything that was going on, so he just decided not to focus on it anymore. And it was roughly around the time I was starting to think of a podcast. So that was one of the reasons. I had nobody to talk politics with. So I decided I'd do up a podcast where I could discuss my ideas about politics. That was my choice. Anybody else who starts up a YouTube channel or a podcast or anything else, they can do about whatever the fuck they want. They do not have to focus on politics or current events or the news if they don't want to. In fact, could you imagine if that's all that was going out? If these sort of videos were the only ones available on YouTube, just everybody talking politics, everything would be way more political than it is now. In fact, probably one of the reasons everything is the way it is that everybody now is doing politics. I mean, I jumped in late. Everybody was already on the politics bandwagon before I was on. I really just did it again because I had nobody to talk about. So I would actually have a pretty heavy field. If I even wanted to make it close upwards to the top, I would have a pretty heavy field to wade through because there's plenty of people who've already been doing this for years, plenty of people with more education and experience. But why is it that if somebody decides instead that they want to start up a podcast talking about sports, that makes them a bottom feeder? Because technically she's just making a blanket statement about everybody who doesn't focus on this stuff as bottom feeders. Sure, she's talking about the people who are making these smash videos against her, such as Andywarski, Blair White, some black guy, and plenty of others. Sure, that's the main people she's going after with this bottom feeder remark. But when you equivalate that, because they're not focusing on these issues, they're bottom feeders, anybody who doesn't focus on these issues when they're making videos or podcasts or any of that is a bottom feeder. This is bullshit. So unless you're doing exactly what Candace is doing, you're worthless. That's it. And then, right after that is said, where she more or less insults all of Blair's friends, everybody else who doesn't focus on this stuff. And hell, you know what? Even though I'm focusing more on the stuff she's talking about, I'll still take it as a bit of a personal insult as a YouTuber, even if I am small time. She does this, she insults pretty much the entire audience who make YouTube videos. She insults Blair White and all these people that attacked her. And then Dave Rubin defends her. Right then and there says, well, we all wish that YouTubers would make better quality videos. People can make whatever the fuck they want. They do not have to. But I'm sure, again, he's making more reference to these people who are making these sort of videos. But you know what? How many people have been called out because YouTubers are making the videos? How many fake news stories have been broken because of YouTubers doing this? Plenty. How many fake narratives have been destroyed by YouTubers? And these YouTubers, because, you know, the sort of group that they're talking about, there's more to them than just the ones that were there. It's not just some black guy, Andywarski, Blair White. This can also, because we're dealing with the skeptic community, this blankets out to everybody. Thunderfoot, Sargon of Akkad, and everybody else. People who make good quality videos. In fact, somebody like Thunderfoot puts up scientific videos. Like, come on. These are good quality videos where people are learning. In fact, even somebody like Dave himself has talked about how the future of learning is on YouTube. But now he's just going to fucking just yank that all down and say that, oh, you know, they just make trash videos, and pretty much agreeing with her that they're bottom feeders. Well, guess what? Dave is also a YouTuber because that is where his main audience is. Sure, he's a commentator. Sure, he's an interviewer. But there are times where they're not focusing on issues that are that important to modern day. Sure, he does like to talk about those issues. But maybe because of what the subject they're talking about or the person they're talking about, it's not dealing with the immediate issues we need to deal with. Would that make him a bottom feeder because he's not focusing on these issues? Yet, he's there criticizing them just the same. This is why Dave Rubin would not be my moderator. Even if he was more on my side, I wouldn't want him as a moderator. I don't want a moderator who's biased like that. I want a moderator keeping things in line as we have an exchange of ideas. That's what a debate is supposed to be. But Dave actually started taking sides. He lost control of it many times. He let Candace get away with a lot more than Blair did. He let her yell. He let her make insulting remarks. But then when Blair was trying to make actual factual statements or actual points, he would cut her off. Like the thing about Richard Spencer. There was a good thing that should have actually they gotten into because that would have actually shown a lot of bullshit on Candace's part. And Dave stops it. Now why? Why did Dave do this? What is this bias that he's showing towards Red Pill Black over Blair White? Is it because that Dave's moved away from the left that now he finds more solace in maybe somebody who seems more conservative, like Red Pill Black, over somebody like Blair White, who is a conservative, even though she's transgender? She's still a conservative, but he put some preference in Red Pill Black. I really don't know why. But his bias showed greatly throughout the rest of the debate as well, making small comments like this, but these small comments matter. He didn't let good topics of the debate actually be discussed, yet he let the snide remarks, the snarky remarks, and the little back and forth ad hominems go like it was no big deal. So I still like Dave Rubin for sure. I'll still listen to his show, watch his show, but god damn it, man, what the fuck were you doing? This was just ridiculous. And it's just, to me, Dave's a guy who rails against the media. He doesn't like the way journalists are. In fact, during his first talk with Red Pill Black, she called them journalist hitmen, and he was completely on board with that. Like, oh yeah, I definitely seem like they're journalistic hitmen these days. So he was all for that. Yet he himself could be considered part of the media, at least the alternative media. And this is showing a great bias on his part, in my opinion. So Dave is actually did something that he's railed against many times. He didn't maintain a neutrality. He put his biases in, and he also steered the conversation in a direction that he wanted it to go. He didn't let the conversation just go in a direction. He steered it. Not very well, but he did. This one ended up being longer than I was expecting, but I just had a lot to say because I found that Red Pill Black pissed me off so much. Those snide remarks, I have no idea how Blair kept her calm so well. I really don't, even though you could tell it was really getting to Blair a few times. But I was not losing my shit, but I was frustrated with listening to this. I couldn't stand listening to the way that Candace Owens was going about this. I honestly, personally believe that a real moderator would have given Candace some warnings. Would have been like, okay, you're making a lot of remarks, you're making a lot of ad hominems, you need to get back on track and talk about the subject, sort of thing. Even if it's nothing extreme, even if it's just that, it's like, okay, we need to get back on track and actually talk about the thing and not go after like personal attacks. That would have been fine, but he never gave any of that to Candace. And the only time he seemed to jump in and be like, okay, we need to get back on track and stuff, is when Blair would also start to get a little more into it with Candace. He let Candace go as many times as he wanted, but it seemed like every time Blair was getting a little more upset about things, it was like, oh, whoa, God. Oh, no, girls, we need to keep this on track, keep this going. Fuck off, man. Fuck off, Dave. You, honestly, I've already said it before, but I thought he did a shit job on this moderating. Never would moderate one of my debates. I'll still watch him for his interviews, no problem with that. But, yeah, no. And honestly, I wasn't super happy the way he moderated his previous debate, too, which was Michael Shermer versus Dennis Prager. And again, I felt it was a lot of the same. I felt Prager was cutting off Shermer when he was talking, and just Prager was being a lot more aggressive on the situation than Shermer was. And nothing. But he seemed to me, whenever Shermer would kind of be a little more like, well, I want something to say. Again, Dave would be jumping in. He seemed to like Dennis Prager a lot. Like, Dennis Prager seems to be one of his, guests he likes a lot. And he's had Michael Shermer on, but I don't know if they had the same connection, so to me, it showed a bias. And again, I think that's more what happened here with Candace Owens. He made a connection with Candace when she was on the show, and he was immediately dispositioned to defend her. In fact, before the debate even happened, when this was going down, Dave Rubin defended her on Twitter when all this was going down. This is another reason he should not have been moderating the debate. I mean, fuck. You can't show a support for one side and then say, absolutely, I will be the one to keep things on track. No, you have a bias in this. There's a reason you're not supposed to be in this. I mean, even if I was to even if I was to moderate, say, a religious debate, I'm an atheist. But in something like that, you're supposed to come at it unbiased. You're supposed to come at it and treat people the same way, so that way you can get to the bottom of what's true, what's false, what's right, what's wrong. Like, that's what's supposed to do in a debate. Who wins the debate? So if I was moderating, I'm not going to show more preference for the atheist if the atheist is being more aggressive on whoever, the Christian, the Muslim debater. Then yeah, I would make him step back a little more in line. If one was not debating the subject, but just throwing insults at each other, and that happened to be the atheist, then I'd point it out and be like, you have to get back on track. We're not here to say, all Christians are stupid. We're here to talk about whether the existence of the belief in God is necessary or, is important or something like that, whatever it happens to be debating. It's just poorly done by Dave. Poorly done by Dave. I was not happy with the way Candace Owens did it. And I don't have a picture of the tweet, but there was a tweet put out where someone put a poll out and they asked who won the debate. And it seemed Blair won. Most people thought Blair won. And actually what I thought was funny about it was that in the poll they put it Ms. Blair White, and I think this was also making reference to the fact that Candace Owens was all like, I'm not going to call her she. This is a grown man sitting across from me, and then called her she the rest of the fucking debate. So whatever. So yeah, I guess I had a lot more to say on this subject than I thought I did. It really aggravated me, and again, I didn't want to get in on it because a lot of other YouTubers already were, but after listening to the debate, I knew I had to say something. Thank you for joining me on the podcast today. I'm Adrian Lloyd. This is just my stupid opinion.